13 today, this morning. Alright, it'll be 13, we're going to start with verse 1. Alright. Everybody get to it? Y'all ready? Alright. Starting with verse 1. 1 through 5. Alright. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Alright. Father, we just thank you once again for the blessing and the privilege to come before your throne. Father, we just pray that you open our eyes that we may see, open our ears that we may hear, give us a heart that we may obtain, and most important, give us a voice that we may share. In Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, this morning I'm gonna do something a little different. I got a definition up here of barren. I'm gonna read a couple of scriptures. I'm gonna kind of get into something. I'm gonna basically use the word barren as a kind of metaphor for something else I'm gonna try to get to. Like I say, I'm going to be starting off in Judges 13, 1 through 5. And it says, "And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of our Lord. And the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of Danites, whose name was Mahon. And his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto the unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines." Amen.
Amen.
Like I say, I'm going to use that as a kind of a starting point. When we think of bearing as in this, it's, a woman can't have a child, can't conceive, and throughout the Bible there's a few important parts that they can't have children, and they do. What today I want us to look at is the word bearing as far as not producing anything. And not just that, but when our lives are not producing anything or what we think it should produce, when the angel of the Lord or when God speaks to us, we have reactions to that. And that's what I want to kind of get to today, is the different reactions in the Bible that was reacted to this, to that actual thing. Because like I said, I'm going to take 3 different areas of the Bible that show a woman being barren, and then how they reacted to that, or how their spouse reacted to that. And a lot of times that's how we react to it. When we've gone through a barren land, or not childbirth. Of course, I can't have children anyway. I'll always be barren on that. No, I'm just kidding. But what I'm trying to get to is, in our lives we go through these things, and we expect fruit, or we expect growth, and there's none. Or we just going la 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 through life, and then all of a sudden the angel of the Lord appears to us and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you this." Or God speaks through His Word and says, "Hey, this is your promises. This is where we're going to be. This is what you need to do." And we get to a point where we have different reactions to that concept. And that's what I want to get to this morning. I want us to see these different answers to when the angel of the Lord comes to him and tells him, "Hey, you're not going to be barren anymore. You're going to have a child." And the first one I'm going to start with, the word bearing, if of course containing to a woman, is they're unable to bear children. And of course men, it would be they're sterile. When we talk about land, we talk about the poor. It's too poor to produce much or any vegetation, basically a desert. And when we think about a tree, we think of it as not being productive, producing fruit or seed. Mm-hmm. And then when we talk about actions, of course, it's showing no result or no achievements. It's unproductive, basically, is what barren means. And when we look at that, we see how our lives, we have these barren moments, or sometimes our whole life feels like it's barren. But then when God comes to us, as the song says, if we inhale His grace, and we just let it hold it in, and then we exhale it, then we have something to hold on to. Even if it's just the salvation itself, if that's the only thing that we have, that God came to us and said, hey, you can be saved and spend eternity with me, then really that's the gift that we have and we can obtain for the rest of our lives. But if there's other things throughout our lives too, whether they're promises or even maybe having children. So we have to see our faith depends on, rephrase that, our actions depend upon our faith. And that's what I want to touch base on today. I'm going to use 3 different illustrations. I'm going to turn to Kings, 2 Kings 2:19 through 22 real quickly. and before I get into it, now, this is something I want us to hold on to, because it's going to kind of tie everything together. This is Elijah after he endured the power from Elijah. This is basically a second after he crossed the Jordan. He smote the Jordan, it opened, he came across it. And it says, and the men of the city said unto Elijah, behold, I pray thee, the situation of this city is pleasant, as my Lord seeth, but the water is night, and the ground is barren. And he said, bring me a new curse, and put salt therein. And they brought it to him. And he went forth unto the spring of the waters, and cast the salt in there, and said, thus saith the Lord, I have healed these waters. There shall not be from thence any more death or barren land. So the waters were healed unto this day, according to the saying of Elijah which he spoke. Now, the reason I want us to remember that is because there was a reason that the land was desolate. There nothing could grow. Basically, it was the water. It was killing the people because the water was poison. The reason I want us to remember that is because there's always something that's keeping us barren. No matter what it is in our life, whether it's you can't have children, there's a reason that you don't have children, or a man just sterile, or land. Like in this case, it was the water. And so Elijah healed the water. And I want us to remember that, because there's always a healing process. But the acceptance of that is where we get into our little human aspect of it. We, as I said before, we know God can do it, but yet will God do it? Now, there's 2 things out of this little scripture I want us to remember, is that it was healed, but also the men had the faith enough to bring it to Elijah, the cup of salt, not knowing what he was going to do with it. And then, of course, the waters were healed. I want us to remember that, because that's so important to overcome our barrenness, as I want us to see today. Now, the first story I'm going to get into, I'm going to touch base on 3 different deals. Like I said, I want to use the barren childbirth, or the lack of childbirth, to see that our lives sometimes go through this barrenness, or this emptiness, or this desert, whatever we want to say. And sometimes we're just going through life, like we'll see in one of these. They're just going through life. They didn't ask for a child. They didn't. Well, actually, all 3 counts. They didn't. They was just going through life, and the angel of the Lord appeared to them and said, "Hey, you're going to bear a child. This is what this child's going to do." Now, there's 3 different reactions to this when this happens, and I want us to see that, because a lot of times, and the Lord revealed to me, we do that. I do that sometimes, and like I said, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but sometimes when he comes to us and he says, okay, Timmy, I'm going to do this for you. Well, you can't do that. I can't do that kind of thing. As I've said before, a lot of times we hinder our growth, our fruitfulness, because of either doubt, whatever it is, fear. But we got to always remember that the water can be healed. And whatever is causing our drought, our barrenness, or our death, whether we want to call it spiritual, our life, our journey of life, whatever we want to call it, whatever word we want to use, there's always something causing it. Whether it's sin, it's doubt, it's fear, it's someone in the way, whatever it is. You being in the way, there's always something, but it can always be healed. And now that's a message for a different time. I want to get into something else. Okay, so the first one I want to talk to, I want to touch base on 3 separate things today. I want us to get out. One of the things that we react to, God speaking to us or telling us that we're going to He's going to give us something, is we laugh about it. We're like I said, we like, oh God, that ain't right. You're talking to Timmy. That can't be right. And the second one is we doubt. And the third one is the most important, and I'm going to share that later because it's the most important, and that's what we need to do. The last one I'm going to share is what we need to do. First one, like I said, is we're going to talk about laughter. And I want to turn to Genesis 17 real quickly. We're going to see. Now Abraham, of course, he had been promised. He was the original, the covenant of Abraham and all the things that go in. But I'm going to start reading in chapter 17, verse 15. And it said, and God said unto Abraham, as for Sarah, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarah, but Sarah shall her name be. Excuse me. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Now, some translations say that it's like joy, like he's laughing like, yeah, right, not like disgrace, disrespect laughing, but like, yeah, right, kind of thing. So I want us to look at that. Now, he had already been promised this before. If we read before, God has already told him, you're going to be, leave your land. I'm going to send you on. You're going to have a great nation. And that was years before, and Sarah couldn't have a child, so they did the handmaiden and all the stuff they did and all to get to this journey. But at this point again, God's reminded me. He said, Abraham, your Sarah's going to have a child. And then we read a little bit more. He talks about Ishmael and all that and how they go, yeah, no, he's saying no. Sarah's going to have a child. And she's going to bear the great nations. And all these are going to come from her. And then that's when he's like, God, it's kind of late. It's 100. I'm 100, she's 90. We don't even do that anymore. We read a little bit farther. So that's what we do sometimes. When we get in, I want us to catch this. Like I said, I know we're talking about childbirth. I want you to think about something in your life. Whether it was when you was 10 years old or 25 years or just last week, God spoke to you. Or you read something in the Bible and it says, thus saith the Lord. And you laugh. Yeah, right. That ain't going to happen, God. I don't have enough money. I don't do this. I don't do that. The first thing that we do, we say, hey, I'm too old. I'm too young. Like we read about Timothy. When Paul wrote to Timothy, don't worry about your youth. God sent you there. He spoke to you. And that's what God's telling us is sometimes we react in a way that hinders what happens. Because, see, we have to get out of the way. We have to get our thought process. We have to get about who we are, just like I said about the grace. If we ever get past, or when we got past the concept of who we were and we realized that who God was and we can be saved, then it was easy. Now, there's still people in our lives, and there's people that we know, and we might have done it even when someone preached to us. I remember when we lived here, the Baptists would come to the house all the time. We'd take off out the back door, and leave the slowest one had to talk to them. But no, so we made fun. We were like, I don't want any part of that. And so we rejected that by laughter or like, this is that. There ain't nothing. There's a God, but I don't need all that other stuff. What are you doing, God? And that's what Abraham was kind of saying. He's, God, I know you're God. You created everything. But me? I'm going to be the father of all nations? Did you forget how old I was? Did you forget how old she is? And then God said, okay. And then he goes on and he explains, as we read, he explains, and then later on, 3 guests come to his house, to his tent. And I'm going to jump to verse 9 real quickly. And it says, chapter 18, verse 9. And it says, and these are, the 3 strangers come to him, and he says, and they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And like I said, these are the 3 angels that came to him. And he said, and lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it even ceased to be with Sarah after that manner. Like I was saying before, they don't even do that anymore. Like, how's this going to happen? And it says, therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Shall I of serenity bear a child, which am old? So the Lord is telling Abraham what Sarah just said. And is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, she even denied, saying that she laughed. But I want us to get to that. The Lord heard what she said because she laughed under her breath. And we do that.
Yes.
We get and we read something. You know, we read something and we see it and you just laugh like, God, is that real? Or did they make that up? But then we know that the Bible's true, so you're like, well, yeah, it happened. But it's hard for us sometimes to believe. And what I really love about this scripture, and it's been preached many times, is she's like, man, we don't even do that. He can't do that no more. And she's like, yeah, right, this is going to happen. And then God tells him, says, okay, I'm going to come back when it's time. And something's going to happen within both of you that's going to cause this. And then you're both going to think, wow, that was wild. You know what I mean? The miracle is going to happen. The joy is going to come back into the marriage. Everything's going to work into place because you're going to bear a son. But she laughed. And she's like, no. And that's what I want to get to today. The first thing I want us to look at is how many times have we done that? I know I have. You know, somebody, and I know this sounds bad, and me being a pastor is terrible, but I've been to revivals and I've been to things, and somebody will preach, be up there going on, and they'll say, thus said the Lord, you're gonna do this, and this is gonna happen to you. Yeah, God, this guy's got the wrong guy. He's really got the wrong guy. And so you laugh within yourself. You know, I don't say it out loud because I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I'm thinking inside, this guy, he must be looking at somebody else. Because we don't see ourselves as that. Just like Abraham and Sarah didn't see themselves as that. We're old. We don't even do that anymore. And you know, we can say that within ourselves, and we laugh, and then just like Sarah, we deny when God calls us on it. What are you laughing for? Is anything too hard for me? I can do anything. And we're like, oh God, I didn't really laugh. I was just kind of being joyful like Abraham was before. I was just having, it was fun. But what I'm saying is that we get wrapped up in and seeing the down and seeing where we're at and seeing what things are. And like I said, it all starts with salvation. You know, many of us have fought it for years. We fought it for years. And some of us got saved and started our walk with God, and then we went a different way because we're like, man, this is just crazy. This ain't me. And then we get pulled back. Or we have that concept just like Abraham, and we got to see that in this. Just like Abraham and Sarah did, is I'm not equipped for that. And we do that in a lot of times in our callings, in our gifts, and we do it in our walk, and even Christians or people that don't know Christ do it. And we say, well, when I stop this, or when I'm ready, or I'm really not that type of person, so I'm going to wait till I am that type of person to accept Christ. And you ever talk to someone that tell you that, say, oh, I'm not ready for that now, I'll wait. Or that's not really for me. And we do that in ourselves as a point of our calling, or just different aspects in our lives, because we get wrapped up into who we are, how old we are, what we have, what we don't have, and what we think God wants from us. And now I really believe that's where the laughter comes, because we see ourselves, and sometimes we see ourselves as other people see us, and so we think, well, I'm not very smart, or they don't think I'm that type of person, so that can't be me. You're not talking about me. And so we laugh. And then God calls us on it. But I want us to remember the one thing He says. And it says in 13, and the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh? Saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I want us to remember that. Because remember when Elijah, all he did was get a bowl of salt, put it in the water, and the water came back to life. And that's what the Lord's saying. Is there anything too hard for me?
Yes.
Can we remember that? Is there anything too hard for him? Now, there's things too hard for me, but not for him that I believe in. And like I said, just like the song, that's why I want to play that song, Exhale. It's because if we breathe it in and we hold it and we let it become part of our lives, because that's what breath does. It keeps us alive. And then we exhale. And we know the purpose. See, and that was the other thing that I want us to get out of this message this morning. There was a reason. There was a reason that Abraham and Sarah had to have a child. To start the nation, to start the bloodline of who? Our Lord Jesus Christ. So if they would have never done it, it would have never got to, well, it would have because God's God, but it would have never got to the point like it was supposed to be. And that's what I'm saying. There was a purpose in it. They laughed at it because they couldn't see it. But God saw all the way down. All the way, all these people, everything from Ruth to Boaz to David to Mary, everything fell into line to be a great nation. And that's what I'm saying. See, we laugh about it, or we reject it with laughter, I guess I would say, because we don't see the purpose in it. Why God wanted us to do that. Why God called us to be a minister, or called us to be a teacher, or called us to be an administrator, or called us to help raise someone else's child. There's a purpose in it. And we may laugh about it, and we may think, God, you picked the wrong person. But God's in the background saying, what are you laughing for? Do you not think that I can do anything? And that's what he's trying to tell us. So a lot of times when we sit there and we think about that, and we get that little laughter in the back of our head, we're like, yeah, right, God. We think about Abraham and Sarah and say, well, he did it for them. He can do it. Because there's nothing too hard for him.
Amen.
So like I said, the first one I want us to kind of see, we see that, of course, we see what happened and everything. But the next one is sometimes we doubt. I mean, we doubt so much that God has to prove himself to us. We doubt even though we're in a holy place. We doubt. And the second one I want us to turn to is Luke. And y'all probably all know this story, and this is one of my favorites. But I'm going to be reading out of Luke real quickly. Is 1:5 through 25, but I'm not going to read all of them. Like I said, I read too slow, and we'll be here all night or all day. So I'm going to actually start at verse 10. And this is the birth foretold of John the Baptist, and we know that his father was a priest, and he was doing his priestly duties, and he was in the deal, and it said in the holies of holies, and it says that in verse 10 it says, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense, because he's in there burning incense, and therefore appeared unto him Zacharias, and it says, and appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John, and thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. Amen. Now, I want us to see who he is, because this is really important. It shows us that we're never too above of having doubt. So when you get that, sometimes we get that doubt in our mind, and then we realize, oh man, I'm doubting God, and then we start feeling bad because we doubted God. We're like, oh man, I shouldn't be doubting. I'm a believer. I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to believe everything. And look at Zacharias. What was he? He was a high priest. He was in there burning incense. The Lord spoke to him, and we see his reaction in a second. We see who he is, but we have to look at who he is, and we think, my God, this dude's he spent his whole life learning about what God. I mean, he knew about Sarah and Abraham. I mean, he read it from a child. He became a priest. He knows everything. He knows everything that God did. And yet the angel of the Lord comes to him, and what does he say? We look at what he says, and this is amazing to me. We look at verse 18, and Zechariah said unto the angel, whereby shall I know this? For I am old, man. There's that old thing again. That's what I say all the time. I'm an old man. It says, I'm an old man, and my wife was stricken in years. And the angel answered, said unto him, I am Gabriel, that stand in the presence of God, and am sent to speak unto thee, and to show thee these glad tidings. And behold, thou shalt be dumb, and not able to speak until the day that these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in this season. Now I want you to get that. I've read this and I've ministered on this. I love this passage, but it got to me today as I thought, my God, he's a priest. I mean, a high priest. He ain't just somebody. And Gabriel says, who do you think? What do you think? I'm Gabriel. I stand at the presence of God. God sent me down here to tell you, and you're going to argue with me that you're too old, and your wife's too old, and you just shut up until I get ready. And that's, sometimes God needs to do that to us. But I thought about that this morning. I thought, that is so us. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're holies of holies, and we're walking around, oh, God, I got the Spirit of God, I speak in tongues, and I lay hands on people, and I go to the hospital, and God says, hey, Timmy, I want you to do this. What? You can't do that. And he goes, well, just shut up until it happens. Yes. And that's what I was thinking today. God, I wish you would shut me up until it happens. No, I'm just kidding. But when we think about it, sometimes we do. The first thought of us is like, oh, yeah, right, God. And then all of a sudden God's like, who do you think I am? Or he sends the angel down Gabriel, and Gabriel's like, do you know who I am? You're a priest. You're supposed to know who I am. I mean, the holy writings are about me. The Torah says that I'm Gabriel. You don't know that? But what is so wild about it, and what God really revealed to me was, it's because I do sometimes when I doubt, and God speaks to me, or I read something, and I have that doubt in my heart, and I'm like, oh, God, I really don't know. That sounds kind of out there. Mm-hmm. Or I hear someone minister, or like I said, someone gives me a word, and I kind of laugh, like, yeah, right, he's talking about me. But maybe then it gets to the next point. I think, well, here I am. I believe God could do anything, just like he said. Is anything too hard for me? And I believe that I can be saved, and I believe he created earth, heaven, and earth. But yet, I can't believe that. Come on. And then I start feeling guilty. I start feeling like, man, I'm ashamed of myself that I don't believe that. But then I read this again, and I thought, here's this high priest that had been taught all these years, and he's in the burning incense, and he doubted. And of course, God told him, shut up until it happens. But what I'm saying is that sometimes just because we doubt, we don't have to feel guilty about it. We don't have to feel bad like we do sometimes. We put that self-condemnation on us because we're like, God, I should have believed that. I should have known. And so we start feeling bad. Or we get that little, we be praying. Have you ever been praying for somebody and you're like, oh man, I don't even know why I'm praying for this person. And then we feel guilty. We're like, oh man, I blew it. But then I read this and I thought, it happens to everybody. It happened to Peter, and it happened to all these people, and even Paul. Some of his writings, you could tell that he had that little bit of doubt, like, oh God, And so he's telling us, don't feel. We're human, and sometimes he has to make us be quiet till we see it. But the other part of it goes back to what I said before with Abraham and Sarah. What was the reason? Because someone was going to be born. Yes. So the reason he came, the promise, was not only to where she wasn't bearing him, but because there was a purpose in her having a child. With John the Baptist. And that's what he's trying to tell us through this message, is there's a purpose that he's telling you something. There's a reason that he's sending you somewhere. There's a reason that he's teaching you something. Because something is coming out of it. He overcomes the bearing We can't grow anything. We're not fruitful. He overcomes that and he blesses that. And he says, no, not no more. You're not barren anymore, but there's a reason why you're not barren anymore. And that's what we have to find, is that reason. And just like he told him, you're going to bear a son. His name's going to be John. And he's going to be good tidings. And that's the other thing that I really like about this message. Zacharias is sitting there arguing with Gabriel. And Gabriel's like, hey, dude, don't know what he's going to do? He's going to bring good tidings. And you're sitting here arguing with me. And we do that with God. And God says, hey, Timmy, do you not understand, dude? There's something good going to come out of this. Just shut up. Be quiet for a minute. Let me tell you what you're going to do. And then we're like, okay. And we're like, well, I still don't believe God. But. So we get, but the other part of that is there's a purpose in it. There's a reason that Sarah's not barren anymore. That Elizabeth's not barren anymore. It's because something great's coming. Good tidings is coming from. Just like with us. There's something, that desert place, we're coming out of it for some reason. And it's not just for me. It's for those that I can share with. And so that takes us back to the third one. And so, we like I said, I really want us to understand verse 20 before I move on. Is he says, and behold, thou shalt be dumb and not able to speak until the day that this thing shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall fulfill in their seasons. That in their season is an important thing too. We can't forget that, because he may have told us something 10 years ago, and we might have laughed at it then, and we might have said, okay, whatever. And then we go through our life, and we go through our journeys, and we wake up one day in a motel room, and God tells us, hey, I called you to do something. Oh, God, I can't do that. I'm way past that. No, I called you to do something. Now you do it. And then your brother comes over and tells you the same thing. God told you to do something. And then we have to remember that promise. Yes. We have to remember that word. We have to remember that deal. And we got to remember, okay, I might have missed it the first time, but there's a season coming, and I have to be ready for that season. And if he has to keep me quiet until that season comes, then I'm going to shut up and do what God tells me to do until that season comes. And that's what I'm telling you. Sometimes we try to rush it, and we force it, and we try to do all these things, and sometimes it's not in the season. He's preparing us for it, though. He's getting us ready for it, but it's not that time that it's going to bloom. And then we get discouraged because it's not there right then. But we have to remember, just like Abraham and Sarah, he went a long journey. Even tried to have a kid there with someone else so they'd have the great nation. But that's not what God said. God said it's with her. And then she laughed. And then, like I said, then we get to the point of doubt. We laugh at it at first, and then we start doubting it. And then we get to the next thing of it. And this is what I really want us to understand. Because when we doubt, we never speak of it. See, God had him be quiet until the season came, which is very important. But one thing that I got out of this is that sometimes when we doubt, we don't speak of it, or we don't testify. See what I'm trying to get to? Is because we doubt that we're not that person, or we're not that place that God wants us to be. So we won't tell anybody. And the most important thing about that is that we see what he did for us. Or what he's going to do for us. You know, I heard John Osteen preach a message at one time, and it really touched me. Joel's father, and he was ministering about God giving him something, and he would always tell him that he has it. Now, I can't remember the exact story, but he was like, I'd always tell, yeah, God, I have that. And they're like, well, John, you're lying. You don't have that. No, I have it because God told me I have it. It just ain't here today. But I have it. It's mine. And that's really what he's saying is that sometimes our doubt makes us dumb to where we can't speak about it because we're afraid to testify of something that we don't know if we really got it because we have that doubt. But if we have the faith knowing that is coming, like I'm healed, or I'm going to get a new job, or I'm going to get promoted, or my church is going to grow, or whatever the deal is. When we get to that point, we testify of that. Oh yeah, I'm a pastor of a small church in Kennedale. Pretty soon we're going to, we got a new property, we're going to be building, doing all this. Well, how are you going to get that? Well, I don't know yet, but God's got a plan. You got any money? No, I ain't got no money. You got this? Oh no. Well, how are you going to get there? You got very many members? Oh no, but we're going to get there.
Come on. Amen.
And that's what he's saying, is that's the testifying. But when we have doubt, when I have doubt and someone asks me, hey, I hear you're a pastor. Oh yeah, I pastor a little small church. How's it going? Oh, I said, all right. You going to grow? You got any out? No, we're doing okay. See, that's the doubt. It's not allowing me to testify what God has in store for me. Because see, he gives us a purpose, and he gets us from the barren to the fruitful for a reason. That's what we have to determine. Is what is the reason? Now the last one I want to share with you, we're going to go back to Judges. And I want us to read what happened after God told Judges, back to Judges 13. And I want us to see, sorry, I got all messed up here. Well, Lord have mercy, I got my notes mixed up. We're wrong tab. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, we're going to go back to Judges 13. And we saw that the angel of the Lord came to the woman and told her, womb is going to be opened up, you're going to bear a child. And he told her the thing. So she goes back home and she tells her husband. And we start in verse 6. It says, and then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel. His looks was as an angel of God. Very terrible. But I asked him, not whence he was, neither told me his name. No, she asked him his name. And then she says, but he said unto me, behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son. And now drink no wine, nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazareth to God from the womb to the day of his death. So in other words, she's saying that he's telling her it's very important how you raise this, how you eat, drink, whatever you do while you're carrying this child, because he is something great for Israel to help overcome Palestine. Now, I love this part. This is where, me personally, I'm praying for today, is this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And it says, then Mona, I guess how you say his name, entreated the Lord and said, O my Lord, let the man of God, which thou didst send, come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. And God hearkened to the voice of Manna, and the angel of God came again unto the woman, and she sat in the field, but Manna, her husband, was not there. But what did he say? Did you get that? Mm-hmm. He said, God, send the angel back so he can teach us how to raise up this child. Mm-hmm. Do you get it? He didn't doubt. He didn't fear. He didn't laugh. He didn't say, woman, you're crazy. You're out in the field out talking to some dude. You don't even know his name. That's why he asked him, well, what was his name? The angel's name? Because they knew the name of the angels. And she's like, I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. So I want you to think about it, though. Your wife comes in. She's sitting outside in the field. And probably had a little couple of glasses of wine. Comes back in. She says, hey, man, this dude told me that I'm going to have a baby. You can't have no babies. And she goes, well, what was his name? I don't know. He didn't give me his name. Well, you crazy. But he didn't. He said, yes, okay, God, send them back so we know how to take care of this child. That's where we need to be. When God gives us something, He speaks a word, we read something, we understand something, He tells us this is what it's going to be. Then we say, God, send them to teach me how to raise this child. And meaning the child is the gift, or the job, or the work that we need to be, or whatever it is in your life. that you've been barren all this time from. You had no fruits from it. You couldn't have any children from it. You were living in a desert land, but yet God tells you, hey, you're not going to be barren anymore. You're going to be fruitful and multiply, and you're going to do all this. You're going to have a great nation. But instead of laughing or instead of having doubt, you say, send me someone to teach me how to raise this child up, to raise this blessing up, is what he's saying. Teach me. And that's where I want to be. I want to be to that point to where God shows me something or someone gives me a word. I want to say, God, send me someone to teach me how to do it. What I'm supposed to do, how I'm going to raise that child up or raise that blessing up or whatever you want to call it. Because we get to the point of the doubts and the fears and the laughter and it said, oh God, that's not me. I'm too old. We don't even do that no more. But they didn't. And then we know whose son we were talking about, right? Samson. And he delivered them. Now, he might not have delivered them the way that they thought he was going to deliver, but he did deliver. That's a different message on and stuff. But what I want to get to is, like I said, is when we really look at it. And I'm using the bearing of a child as our life, what we got in our lives. Because there's every one of us. Everyone in this church, everyone outside, every one of us has something that's bearing in our life. Something that doesn't grow in fruit. Something that is not multiplying. Something that's just sitting there doing nothing. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's your job, whether it's your career, whether it's your company, whether it's your family, whatever it is. There's something in our lives that is not bearing fruit. That's all dried up. An angel of the Lord comes to you and says, hey, you're not going to be bearing anymore. You're going to bear a child. And this child is going to do this. And this is going to do that. And you're like, yeah, right. Or you're like, oh, well, how's that going to happen, God? But no, then we need to be like him. And we need to say, okay, God, send someone to teach me. And that's what I'm praying. That's what and like I said, this message is more for me than anybody here. Because that's where I want to be in my life. When I read something. Or when God speaks to me. Or someone prophesies over me. Or someone has an encouraging word for me. I don't want to be that person like, yeah, right. I'm too old for that, God. I want to be that person. Okay, Lord, send someone. Send me the message. Send me the gift. Send me whatever it is that you need me to do to get to that point. To bear that child. To bear that gift. To bear whatever it is. And until we can get to that, we're just going to be barren. We're going to be just like the water. Like I spoke of earlier with Isaiah. We're going to be just like that water. It's not going to let anything grow. It's going to kill people because we're not water. We're not pure water. We're not clean. And from the doubt and the fears and the laughter and all the things. But then God adds that salt. And it can be healed. And that's what he's telling us, is that we were barren. We may still be barren till that season. But what I'm saying is don't be the people that laugh. Don't be the person that doubts. Be the person that asks. Okay, God, send me someone to teach me. Send that angel back to show us how to raise up that child. And that's what I'm going to close with. Like I said, there's so much to this, and there's so much that God has for us. And if we can get to the point of not seeing ourselves, as who we always thought we were, or who people think we are, but we see who he is and what he, and even if we are that goofy person that everybody sees, or that uneducated person that people say, well, you ain't going to amount to nothing, you can't even read. But if I say, okay, that's okay, you're right, I can't read, but God's still going to move.
Amen.
He'll get somebody like he did with Moses. He'll get somebody to talk for him. He'll get somebody to read to me. I don't know. Now we got automated. No, I'm just kidding. But what I'm trying to get to is let's not let barren stay barren. When God tells us that he's going to bear us a child and he's going to say, hey, I'm giving you this, there's a reason he's giving it to you. And it's not about us. See, he said that he's going to come back and make everything work according to it. He didn't say you and say, now they had to do something to get to the point. I'm not saying that. But what he said is, I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to move things and put things into position to where this is going to happen. Whether you like it or not. The same way with Sarah and Abraham. He's like, hey, dude, this is going to happen. You can laugh all you want, but it's going to happen. But like I said, I want to be that person that asked. God, send somebody to show me. Send an angel back. Give me a word. Let me read it in the Bible. Let me see. And then we can. Because see, the other thing that I read about barren, and I looked it up in the New Testament meaning of it, is that you're robbed or you're spoiled of it. Because that's what it does. Is when we get wrapped up into everything else, and we can't be fruitful because it's stolen from us. Or we spoil it because we're like, no, God. Or we do as I did. We hinder it for all those years. And then we doubt and we get fear and we feel guilty because we're like Zacharias and we doubted it. Mm-hmm. And then we feel like, and then he has to remind us, well, he was a high priest and he doubted me. Because that's human. But what I'm trying to get to is, let's be the people that God wants when he sends us a word or he gives us something and he shows us something and he tells us we're not going to be barren of this, whatever it is in our lives, that we don't be the ones that laugh. We don't doubt, but we be the one, okay, God, show me. Send them back to teach me how to raise up this child. And like I said, I'm going to close with that. And if anybody has any prayer requests, you have anything, you have any needs, or if you have a word, if God got something on your heart, come and share it with us. But let's just be the people that's going to move.
Amen.
Hope y'all enjoy.